They thought she was just another polished politician with a mic. So when Karoline Leavitt stepped onto the Rising Star stage in New York wearing an emerald green dress and a confident smile, the show's director leaned over and whispered to an assistant, "Get her on early. The audience will love it." To them, it was a novelty act, America's youngest White House press secretary singing for laughs. Surely, she'd be cut in the first round. But what followed wasn't comedy. It was silence. The kind of silence that fills a room when everyone's too stunned to speak. That same morning in her modest Washington, D.C. apartment, sunlight slipped through white voile curtains as Karoline sat at the window, tapping through an online crossword on her tablet. 7-letter word, musical term meaning very loud, she murmured. She smiled as the answer came. Fortissimo. At 27, Karoline's days were tightly packed, briefings, reporters, policies. At night, she was just a mother to little Nico, occasionally humming lullabies when no one else was listening. Her voice once belonged to a church choir, not a national stage. She'd long let it fade behind press podiums and talking points. Then came the call. "Karoline, it's Sophie from the campaign," said the lively voice on the phone. "Have you seen the news? Rising Star auditions are happening next week in Manhattan." Karoline laughed. "You know that's not for me. I give statements, not solos." But Sophie pressed. "You sang at Mia's wedding, remember? You silenced the whole room." Even Father John was floored. Karoline was ready to politely decline until her hand brushed against a photo on the table. She and her husband Nicholas Racchio, slow dancing at their wedding. She'd sung 1,000 years to him that night. Her secret dream, captured in one fleeting moment. That evening, staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, Karoline softly sang to herself. It wasn't the voice of a press secretary, but of a teenager once told by her music teacher, "Decent voice, but no fire. Stick to politics." That sentence had sent her down a path of political science and public service. What she didn't know was that Sophie had secretly uploaded a recording of that wedding performance. Karoline singing, filling in for the lead vocalist who fell ill. A minute of spontaneity was about to change everything. A few days later, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Miss Leavitt? Ethan Brooks here from Rising Star. We came across a video of you singing at a wedding." "That was you, right?" Karoline hesitated. "I didn't post anything." Ethan laughed. "Well, someone did. And your voice, it moved us. We'd love for you to perform on next week's episode. We'll cover travel and hotel." What he didn't mention, her file had a red PR tag, short for public relations. It meant they expected buzz, not brilliance. A novelty appearance. A press stunt. Karoline sat quietly in the sunlit apartment, memories rushing in like a tide. Choir rehearsals. Open mics. Singing Nico to sleep. Was this a trap or a second chance? She dialed Nicholas. He picked up immediately. "What's up, love?" "They invited me to sing on Rising Star." Nicholas paused. "The Rising Star? The talent show?" She nodded. "Yeah, they saw the wedding video. Probably Sophie sent it in. It's just one song." "And are you going?" he asked gently. "I don't know. I mean, I'm a politician. Who'd want to hear me sing?" Nicholas chuckled, his voice warm. "You once told me something I'll never forget. Life only expands when we step out of our comfort zone. Maybe it's time you listen to your own advice." "That's the Anais Nin quote you always loved," Karoline said softly. Nicholas smiled on the other end of the line. "Funny thing is, you're the one who first taught it to me." His voice grew tender. "You've given so much, to your career, to Nico, to me. Maybe now it's time to give something back to yourself." After the call, Karoline stood in the quiet stillness of their D.C. apartment. Her eyes scanned the familiar space, a wedding photo on the wall, sunlight caught in the golden hour glow. A picture of Nico as a newborn sat nearby, his tiny hand curled against her chest. Every item whispered pieces of her journey: wife, mother, press secretary. But something was missing: her voice. Her true voice. The one she had tucked away for years. That evening, Sophie appeared at the door with a sheepish smile and a bouquet of tulips. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have asked before posting the video." Karoline opened the door and smiled. "It's okay. I called them back. I'm going." Sophie's eyes lit up. "I knew it. I knew you'd say yes." 2 days later, Karoline stood in Reagan National Airport holding a boarding pass and a printed sheet of lyrics, 1,000 years. Her favorite emerald dress flowed to her knees. In her hand, a modest suitcase. The song wasn't just a performance. It was memory. It was her wedding dance with Nicholas. The lullaby that quieted Nico's tears. It was everything she never got to share publicly. When the plane landed in New York, the city met her with its signature chaos, neon lights, pulsing energy, horns blaring through streets that never stopped moving. At the gate, a young assistant named Mia waited with a clipboard and a tired smile. Karoline Leavitt, contestant? Karoline nodded gently. First time doing something like this. First time for everyone, Mia replied, barely looking up from her phone. The Manhattan Convention Center shimmered like a dream, glass walls, marble floors, and fluorescent energy. Contestants swirled around her, singers, dancers, street performers, all chasing something bright. Karoline walked through it like a breeze through a storm. She didn't feel fear. She had faced press rooms that could crush careers with a single headline. This was just a different kind of spotlight. Backstage, she clutched the lyrics sheet, though she didn't need it anymore. 1,000 Years wasn't just a song. It was her life in melody, love, sacrifice, endurance. The makeup room buzzed with activity. A makeup artist named Bella greeted her with a nod. "I'm here to help you shine," she said, her tone part drill sergeant, part fairy godmother. 2 hours later, Karoline barely recognized herself. Her blonde hair was curled with soft waves, eyes lined with a bronzy shimmer, lips a gentle pink. "You good with it?" Bella asked. Karoline studied the mirror, then smiled. Strange, but beautiful. In the waiting area, she sat quietly, lyrics in her hand. A girl with neon green hair plopped beside her. "You're Karoline Leavitt, right? From the White House?" Karoline nodded, trying to smile. "I worked backstage on a season," the girl continued. "They always bring in someone famous. You're what they call PR bait. But if your voice is like in that wedding video," she paused. "Maybe they picked the wrong person to underestimate." Karoline blinked. Gratitude softened her face. "My song is 1,000 Years. It's for my husband." The girl, Zoe, nodded. "Tough song. But if you sing from your heart, they'll regret underestimating you." Night fell outside, but inside the studio, lights burned like high noon. Camera clicks echoed in the corridors. Runners darted by, and the tension buzzed like static. Karoline sat alone in a small holding room, suitcase beside her, lyrics on the table. She didn't need to read them, they were etched into her. But she kept them close, like armor. The door creaked open. Nicholas stepped inside, tie loosened, dress shirt wrinkled from the drive. He had driven all night from D.C. "What are you doing here?" she gasped. "You had meetings." "I rescheduled. This matters more." They sat together, hands entwined. Karoline looked down. "I feel like I don't belong. These kids, they have the fire. I'm just someone who sings lullabies." Nicholas looked into her eyes. "You told me once, music doesn't need bright lights or big stages. It needs honesty." He pulled out his phone. "Watch this." He played Sophie's wedding video again. Grainy, imperfect, but the emotion was undeniable. The camera panned across faces, family, strangers, all silent, moved. A woman held her child closer. An elderly man blinked slowly, touched by a memory. Nicholas whispered, "That's the power of your voice. It's not flawless. It's real. And that's what people remember." When the assistant knocked, 15 minutes, Karoline stood. She exhaled deeply, shedding a decade of self-doubt. "All right," she said. "I'm not hiding anymore." Nicholas smiled. "I always knew you were the bravest person I've ever met." Alone again, Karoline faced the mirror. But she wasn't the same girl who walked away from Miss Helen Carter's music room all those years ago. The teacher's words, "You don't have the fire," no longer rang true. She touched up her lipstick, adjusted her dress, and smiled, not to impress, but as a woman finally at peace with herself. She whispered, "Ready," and walked out. Backstage was alive with motion, laughter, nerves, final run-throughs. A guitarist tuned his strings. A dancer stretched in the corner. Karoline stepped into the wings where the spotlight waited. And this time, she didn't flinch. A circle of dancers huddled backstage, rehearsing their moves one final time, sweat shimmering under the stage lights. As Karoline walked by, a few heads turned, some surprised, others doubtful, but no one spoke. Ethan Brooks, the producer with a smile polished for prime time, stepped toward her. "Let it go," he said smoothly, his tone rehearsed. "You're up. What are you hoping for?" Karoline met his gaze, calm and unwavering. "What about you?" she asked. Ethan arched a brow, his slick composure briefly disturbed. "I'm hoping for silence from the crowd." It sounded like praise, but both knew it was code for forgettable. Karoline didn't respond. She simply smiled and moved on. At the stage wings, Zoe, the girl with neon green hair, stood quietly watching. As Karoline passed, she whispered, "Sing for yourself. No one else." Karoline gave a faint nod. Then she stepped into the light. The stage creaked softly beneath her feet, echoing like her own heartbeat. The house was dark, faceless, but alive with tension, waiting to decide if she was worth listening to. The host's voice rang out, full of overdone energy, from the White House press room to our stage. "Please welcome Karoline Leavitt." Polite applause followed, not cold, not warm, just routine. The kind of applause that knew too many acts. The spotlight hit her eyes, masking the crowd, but she could feel a hush falling, real, expectant. 3 judges sat before her. A former pop icon with sleek platinum hair, a veteran producer, and a Broadway star known for cutting through pretense. They exchanged glances, curious, unconvinced. The male judge leaned forward. "Miss Leavitt, why are you here today?" Karoline took a breath. She could have told a media-friendly story about chasing dreams and breaking molds. But she chose honesty. "I didn't apply," she said simply. "A friend sent in a clip of me singing at a wedding. I had no idea." The audience chuckled softly, not mockingly, but in solidarity. The female judge tilted her head. "And what will you be singing today?" "A Thousand Years," by Christina Perri, Karoline answered. "It's my husband's song. And my son's." The Broadway judge's brow rose, challenging, intrigued. "Bold choice." Karoline nodded. "I've lived every word of it." The music began, gentle piano notes like raindrops on memory. Karoline closed her eyes, breathed in deeply, and began. "I have died every day waiting for you." Her first line was a breathy whisper, slightly raw. But with the next line, her voice grew fuller, steadier, like a door within her had just opened. In the control booth, Ethan leaned back and told the director, "Cue audience close-ups." He grinned, anticipating a viral clip that would burn bright and fade fast. But what happened next wasn't expected. On stage, Karoline lifted the mic from the stand. Her once trembling hands were now firm, grounded, like they were touching something sacred. She no longer blinked beneath the lights, no longer held tension in her jaw. She wasn't a politician now. She was a woman who had loved fiercely, lost quietly, and survived out with grace. And with each note, she wasn't just singing, she was telling the truth. It wasn't perfect, but it was raw, real. So real that the air in the room seemed to thicken with every note. "I have loved you for 1,000 years." As the line soared through the silence, tears welled up in several eyes. A man clutched his wife's hand. A young girl, no older than 10, watched in awe, wide-eyed and unmoving. Backstage, Zoe whispered to no one in particular, "She's not just singing. She's breathing life back into her soul." Karoline moved forward, closer to the edge of the stage. Her arms opened slightly, like reaching for someone unseen, perhaps Nicholas, perhaps the version of herself who once believed in music. The final line lifted like a prayer, "And all along I believed I would find you." 3 seconds passed. Then 5. Not a sound. The entire room held its breath. Then a woman stood and clapped. Another followed. Suddenly, the stillness shattered into a roaring ovation. Applause thundered through the hall like a dam breaking. Cheers. Whistles. Waves of emotion crashing against the stage. At the judges' table, the Broadway performer quietly wiped away a tear. The young pop star was already on her feet, applauding nonstop. The silver-haired producer just shook his head, eyes wide with disbelief. "Unbelievable," he murmured. Karoline stood under the blinding lights, still and silent. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She simply looked out at the audience with calm, gentle eyes, as if she had finally come home. The host approached, visibly moved, and handed her a tissue. "Miss Leavitt," he said with a choked voice, "I think we can all agree. You reminded us what music truly is." The next morning, in a quiet hotel room overlooking Times Square, Karoline sat by the window, hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea. Sunlight spilled in, warming her shoulders. Nicholas, lounging on the sofa, stared at his phone. "Karoline," he exclaimed, nearly jumping up. "You're everywhere, over 3 million views. Billboards writing about you. They're calling you the voice of the heart." Karoline smiled softly, her gaze steady and peaceful. The numbers didn't matter as much as the messages that followed. "I'm 30 and just signed up for guitar lessons because of you. I gave up on singing when my teacher called me average. Now I want to try again. Your voice reminded me of my mother. Thank you." A knock echoed through the room, 3 firm taps. Nicholas opened the door. "Karoline, it's Ethan Brooks." Ethan stepped in, carrying a bouquet of white tulips and a cream-colored envelope. His suit was as sharp as ever, but his expression had changed. "Miss Leavitt," he said, voice stripped of showmanship, "I came to thank you and to apologize." Karoline said nothing. She waited. "We brought you on hoping for a viral clip, a PR boost, but instead, you left us speechless." He handed her the envelope. 3 record labels called this morning. They don't just want your voice, they want your story. The kind of story you can't fake or manufacture. Karoline accepted the envelope, but didn't open it. Her eyes met his, steady as they were the moment she stepped onto the stage. "You know," she said, "being underestimated can be a blessing. It gives you the chance to surprise people." Ethan smiled, genuinely this time. "I get it now." Later that day, just before her flight home, Karoline's phone buzzed with a message. "This is Helen Carter from Virginia. I saw you on TV last night. I was wrong. Completely wrong when I said you didn't have fire. You've always been an artist. I'm sorry." Karoline read the text, then read it again. And again. She set the phone down, closed her eyes, and exhaled. After 10 long years, the door that Helen's harsh words had slammed shut finally reopened. Not with bitterness, but forgiveness. On the flight back to Washington, D.C., Karoline gazed out the window at the endless sky. Softly, almost to herself, she hummed, "I have loved you for 1,000 years." For the first time, she no longer feared the spotlight. She had walked into it, not for fame, but to be seen, truly seen, as Karoline. Not just the White House press secretary, but a woman with a voice and a story of her own. Her performance was over, but the impact was just beginning. Back in her Georgetown apartment, the scent of coffee filled the air as Nico's laughter echoed down the hallway. Nicholas welcomed her with a warm hug. "You did it, Karoline. The whole country's talking about you." She smiled, set her suitcase down, scooped Nico into her arms, and kissed his cheek. "I don't need the whole country," she said. "I just needed to know I sang." And they listened. On social media, her performance had gone viral. 1,000 years passed 10 million views in just days. Supporters called her America's heart. Even critics softened. "I may not agree with her politics, but her voice moved me." Variety published a feature calling her the unexpected flame, a new kind of rising star, one who broke the mold. That weekend, Sophie, the friend who submitted the wedding video, arrived with cookies and an electric grin. "Told you you'd go viral," she said, showing Karoline the comments. "I'm 25 and just started dance lessons again because of Karoline. Her voice made me believe in dreams I'd left behind." Karoline read them all. Her heart swelled. These weren't just compliments. They were proof that her voice had lit a spark in people. A spark that reached far beyond politics or popularity. Ethan Brooks emailed days later, inviting her back for the Rising Star semifinals. "You're a phenomenon, Miss Leavitt. We want you back." But Karoline politely declined. "Thank you, but my mission now is at the White House." She also received an invitation to perform at a patriotic concert in D.C., but chose instead to reserve her voice for the moments that mattered most to Nicholas, to Nico, to herself. One quiet morning, as she brewed coffee, her phone lit up with a message from Zoe. "You did it, Karoline. You silenced the room. And I bet Helen Carter's eating her words." Karoline laughed and replied, "Thanks, Zoe. I sang for myself, just like you said." Then she sent a message to Sophie. "Without your video, I never would have dared." Sophie responded instantly. "I just hit post. You did the rest. You're the reason the world stopped and listened." After her unforgettable performance, Karoline returned to the White House with a quiet but undeniable change. She still led press briefings, still faced the media lights, but now she carried something deeper. The calm strength of someone who had dared to step beyond the expected. Someone who had told her story through song. On quiet evenings, with Nico tucked in and the city lights flickering outside, she and Nicholas would sit together, listening to 1,000 years. "Do you ever regret not choosing music?" Nicholas once asked. Karoline shook her head gently. "No, I sang, and that was enough." She didn't need a stage or a spotlight to validate her. She had found something greater, herself. Karoline Leavitt's story wasn't just about a performance. It was about defying expectations, embracing sincerity, and using music to bridge divides in a fractured world. From the press podium to center stage, she reminded everyone that every voice matters, and every story deserves to be heard. Her journey ended, but the message lives on. Dare to be yourself, and the world just might listen. What started as a joke, a publicity stunt on Rising Star, turned into a moment that stunned the nation. Karoline, known to many as a White House press secretary and political figure, was invited to perform not as a serious contender, but as a way to generate online buzz. But when she stood on that stage and sang "A Thousand Years" with heartfelt sincerity, the room fell silent, and then rose in thunderous applause. That performance wasn't just a surprise. It was a revelation. She sang not for fame, but for herself, for her husband Nicholas, for her son Nico, for every version of herself that had once been told she wasn't enough. Years earlier, her music teacher, Helen Carter, dismissed her as lacking passion. But after seeing Karoline's performance go viral, over 10 million views and counting, Helen sent an apology, admitting she had been completely wrong. Karoline's story touched hearts across the country. A 30-year-old viewer picked up a guitar for the first time. Another said her voice reminded them of their late mother. Some were inspired to pursue dance, others to revisit dreams they'd long buried. In a deeply divided America shaped by labels, partisanship, and pressure to conform, Karoline's journey offered something rare: authenticity. She didn't let being branded Trump's person or just a spokesperson box her in. She didn't sing to prove something to the world. She sang to reconnect with her voice, with her truth, and with those who mattered most. And in doing so, she inspired millions. Her story is a reminder that labels don't define us. Courage does. Karoline faced critics like Ethan Brooks, leaned on the love of her family, and turned a PR stunt into a story of personal power. She transformed doubt into discovery and reminded us all of the quiet strength in simply being ourselves. So if Karoline Leavitt's journey moved you, if it sparked something in your own heart, stick with us. Subscribe for more stories that celebrate real courage, true voices, and the beauty of second chances. Until next time, dare to sing your truth.